Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Daily Revelations. This afternoon, happy Sabbath. I'm going to be talking about Genesis 6 and tapping into God's grace because God gives us grace, but there's things that we can do to tap into God's grace to make our hearts more open to just that consistency of getting everything that God wants to give us. We can so much harden our hearts and we don't even realize we're doing it because it's our human nature to do that. And so what does Genesis 6 teach us about living for God? Genesis 6 is about the world becoming so corrupt that it grieved God's heart. The heart of man was described as every intent of it was only evil. That was it. And to the point where it was so bad that it's beyond what we could even imagine. And that's pretty bad because think of all the things that have happened in the world and are happening now. Just genocide, things, that just we go, why? What could possess a person to do that? And yet the entire society, that was the core from which they operated. And so it says, this is what the heart of man was like, and God's heart grieved greatly. But Noah, that's what it says. Noah was different, and he was living in this differently, which means we can do the same. And we can live for God no matter how much corruption is around us. And there's some helpful hints in how Noah lived. It said he was righteous, he was blameless, and he walked with God. Now, when we read those, we take those in the context of how we perceive those words to be. But if you go back to the Hebrew, which I want to take you to, because it gives us a better understanding of exactly what Noah's life was like, that God, and it said that God's grace was upon him because he lived this way. And in some Bible translation, it says his favor, but his favor meant his grace. First of all, the word righteous, it means to be honest with others and to be obedient to God. That's basically it. To live righteous means that you don't tell lies to people. You live honestly. You live openly to those around you, and you follow God's commands that he gives you to live by, whether it's in his word or if he speaks to you to do something, you do it because that's what he desires to have happen in your life. Second thing, blameless. Blameless didn't mean Noah was perfect, but what it did mean was that he was innocent before God because when he messed up, he went to God and confessed it, and God restored him by his grace. So there's a difference there. We can't be perfect. We try, but our human nature gets the best of us, all of us. And we have to admit that we are broken, that we need God's help. We need him to forgive us. We need others to forgive us. And there is where we come back to becoming whole because we realize that it's us and God that makes us whole and one. And then living in community with one another and God all together, that's what makes us complete. So that's what blameless actually means. It doesn't mean to be perfect and to have this perfect life. And those people that say that they do are really just lying to themselves because none of us are. The last thing is that he walked with God. This meant that he had an ongoing relationship. It didn't mean that he took walks with God. Of course, you probably knew that. But that it was a continuous relationship, that every step he took was on the path that God had set before him. And he was conversing with God during that time, making sure, testing, is this where you want me, God? And walking along that path. So, very different from the corrupt world that he lived in, that was only living for themselves, and they were at the bottom of the barrel of existence. And here was Noah. How do we live that way ourselves? Well, I kind of went through that a little bit with each of these words, but I made some notes for myself. What do? We admit that we're weak. Yeah, we tell each other about our weaknesses. Not that we brag about them, but we be real with one another. I know I'm quite real with you when I start talking about all the issues that I've dealt with in my past and continue to struggle with. And when we do that, we leave room for others to do the same. And so we do. We admit that weakness, but also that's how we work towards this path of righteousness. When we see that we need God in those places to perfect us, it just makes it that much easier. Because otherwise, we can live in pride and say, "Oh, I could do it on my own." And there's another sin added to the whole heap. So we confess our failures. Yep, I messed up. And we clear the slate with God and with others quickly, because otherwise it causes rifts in our relationships with others and with God. And we press on through our shame. This is a tough one. When we mess up, our shame wants us to hide. That's what Adam and Eve did. And that's what got them in bigger trouble. They didn't turn to God and say, "God, oh, we messed up. We're going to run back to you." No, they said, we're hidden. We're naked. We don't want to deal with this. And we don't want you to be part of it. God's grace can only come in when we ask him to be part of that shame. And we ask him into those dark areas in our lives where he can heal and he can make us whole. So we don't hide and we don't run away. We stand in it and we say, "You know what? This is part of my nature that God needs to perfect." And that's when God's grace comes in and he perfects us. And then we're honest with others about our shortcomings after we're honest with God. And then we are obedient to him. And that's when his grace can fill our lives abundantly. And as it overflows into the lives of everyone around us. So there's my little bit of daily revelation with you today. Thank you for joining me this Sabbath. And we're having an awesome day. And I'll see you again tomorrow, everybody. Bye.